What's going on, guys, and welcome back to finally a new episode of Northern Valley. Yes, sorry about the slight delay. Well, more than slight, but yes, if you didn't catch the update video, I had a really nasty cold, so recording wasn't actually feasible for me, but no worries, because in the downtime when I was sick, I was able to actually record quite a bit of footage, I think, so this should be a fairly lengthy recording or fairly lengthy video. We have a lot going on here, so we're hopping right in. We are rerouting this little train line. The train line we're kind of finishing as we expand. So, I mean, this is by no means set in stone. Well, this part is now, but like before, we just kind of threw the train tracks all over the place just to get them from point A to point B. No real design went into it. So, yes, as we move kind of out, we're kind of finalizing those where they are and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as you can see, I'm trying to sink the rail lines down under the ground, but not like with a tunnel. I want to keep it kind of exposed to the sun, but have it like it was meant to be underground. So that's what we did. We put the key walls up, we went ahead and we ran the track right down under it, and you'll notice throughout this episode that the Move It tool is once again indispensable. This tool is so powerful, and if you don't know what I'm doing when I'm moving the roads and stuff like that, it is the Move It mod. I highly recommend you go in and download it. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you figure out the little quirks of it, it is such a good mod. So yes, you can move the height and the position of everything, but yeah, it comes in handy here, because we're putting the highway down over it, and as you can see, I was struggling to find a spot to put these highways down. They didn't want to actually sit down correctly, so what I had to do is just rough it out, and then go ahead and finish and put them in the right spot with the Move It tool. Now, we're jumping over to the bridge that was placed in a certain episode, but never really talked about. Like, I had found this in my assets, and I had just put the bridge in there, in the river, just to remember that I had it. Haven't touched it, and now we're finally getting to put that to use. So yes, if you haven't figured out by now, this episode, we have a lot of highway construction going on, so if that's not quite your thing, no worries, that's not the entire part of the episode, but yeah, certain parts here and there, we are laying out the highways just a little bit, because eventually this run over the bridge that we just did is going to go out to the harbor that we're eventually going to be building, hopefully soon, but I'm not exactly sure on the timetable on that. But we're splitting this right now. What we're working on, or what we were just working on, was a small little interchange that's going to bring traffic down to more, I guess, toward downtown. Now, this city's very weird in that there's not actually a highway that goes directly downtown. A lot of real-life cities have that. They have the highway access straight downtown. We don't really have the luxury, because the river kind of chokes off all the access, and there's such a minimal amount of space that we're working with for our city that it really didn't warrant putting a highway system in. It would have been really bad, but fairly congested, I want to say, I guess. But we're trying to run as much of a highway access down as close to downtown as we can. So you'll see later on where that bridge that we had just, the suspension bridge, that's going to wrap around to that other weird island. Again, we're going to go take a look at that in the live portion, and we'll be doing some more work on that later. But yeah, a lot of the highway access is going to come from that, but this little offshoot runs with the train track, and it's down toward the helicopter depot area that we did in the last episode. Now, you saw me just place another helicopter depot, and that's because there was a police helicopter depot that I had no idea was in the game until, well, I think last episode, as I was kind of digging through all the helicopter depots and all the public utility stuff. But actually, there's a lot of things that I didn't know were in the game, and we're actually going to be going to do one of those soon, I think. I'll point that out. But right now, we're just kind of connecting all of the highway and this interchange. This interchange gets tweaked a little bit here and there just to try to get it to look good. It's been so long since I've designed interchanges in this game, so it was kind of like a relearning process for me. Then again, it wasn't anything extremely challenging. Now, there is one highway off-ramp that we're going to build later that I think I might want to redo because it really doesn't look great, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Again, the Move It mod here, awesome. Like, all you have to do is rough out what you kind of want in your mind, and then you can go in with the Move It mod and do some really fine tweaking and detail work. Or not detail, but tweak like the segments and the nodes to get them exactly where you kind of want them. Now, you're seeing me actually take the Move It mod and swing the curve off of the highway kind of opposite of what the game by default puts down, and this makes it a little bit more realistic. So on like a real highway, there aren't curves that come off at like a really sharp angle and then curve back toward the highway and then continue their curve. I'm not sure if I can explain this real well without actually showing you, but you see on real highways more of like a straight shot off the highway, so using the Move It tools allows you to kind of create more of a realistic exit and on-ramp and merge points on highways, so really, really good to go ahead and just, I guess, play around with it until you get it correct. So you're seeing me right now try to figure out how to connect this road to the main 4-lane road. And before we just had I think it was a 6 or a 4-lane like large road, and that really wasn't working. I couldn't get it to, like, it kept, like, I think it was putting a weird light in and all that kind of stuff. But before we go into that, I guess let's go over here and talk about what I'm doing. Now, we're back at the dam, obviously, and there's these little outflow pipes that I originally really wanted to have at the dam, but I don't think I had them at the time, or I don't even know. They might even be, like, native to the game. And what you're seeing right now is me put some, like, water storage, I think. So basically what this building does is it collects any of the water that your infrastructure in the city is producing, and it's basically storing it up. Now, I am not sure if this is a mod or if that's like native to the game now, so you guys can let me know, I guess, in the comments. But as you see, I wanted to put more of these in, and then I popped over to the Pubaka Canal sewage center, and yeah, we were having some issues. So I guess the more sewage that your city needs, the more these assets actually output. And as you can see, they were outputting over what the canal was capable of actually holding. So I had to go through, and of course, nothing's ever easy. I had to delete the canal and then upgrade them by just either upgrading them with the tool or just relaying them down. But we get the deepest canals that we can get, and it appears to be working correctly now. So I don't know. It's been so long since we were over here that it kind of caught me by surprise. But again, I'm kind of glad we did catch that because it was kind of an issue. So we fixed all that up. We should be good now, I think. But yes, we're back to this little intersection here that I started to talk about. But yeah, we had the 4-lane road, and then I was trying to connect the 2 highway points to it, and it just wasn't really working all that well. The way the connections were working, it was creating a weird light, and there shouldn't have been a light there. But, you know, I figured out to just go ahead and put some one-ways in and then route the traffic through that. So, again, we'll go through and actually talk about that more in the live portion of this video. But right now what we're doing is actually finishing some of these lines. So when you use the Move It mod, sometimes there's little segments that get weird with the stock or default lines that are on the pavement. And so I had to go through and in a couple areas go ahead and try to fix that with just a prop placement. And as you can see, I had to pull a small line all the way back to create kind of this continual looking line. Probably not great for frame rate purposes, but it's probably okay. It'll work. And then what we're doing here is actually using these, I think they're called Jersey barriers, and just placing those alongside some of these like high speed type areas, like this off ramp right here. Is something that should have probably had a guardian wall, not a guardian, a guard wall, maybe guardrails, maybe. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you get the point. Some of these really needed this, and they didn't spawn with them by default. Now, as I was going through, I found this really interesting little prop, and this is I was trying to get it to work, and it wasn't cooperating. So I ended up deleting everything and then trying to place it. And then again, it didn't work because of the way the road angles were, but we get it to a fairly acceptable point, and I feel like we're okay with that. Now, I was thinking about maybe putting these in all over the place. I don't know. It might not be worth the time to do, just because of the weird, like, it's a very unique angle to get that thing to look good, and it's okay where it is. From a distance, it looks great, but yeah, we'll go ahead and look at it later. Right now, what we're doing is going through and making sure that this bridge works correctly. Now, if you don't have the Move It mod and you want to have custom bridges like this, I honestly have no idea how you would go about it. Like, this mod makes this process, even though it is a tedious process, it's a lot easier with the Move It mod. And I actually cut out the other half because it's very tedious work. Not very exciting to watch, but yeah, just moving all of those into the same spot, using the cable guides as a guide, and yeah, we get this to a point where it's pretty good. There's no support. Like, I turned the support off of the roads, and then it was pretty much just place it in the right spot and make it look good. Now, I like having these very sweeping off, not off ramps, but ramps off of the bridge, and this bridge just looks really great. Now, it actually, I don't know what we want to do with the, like, what I'm trying to say is the downtown area is kind of set where it is, but this bridge, I feel like it should be in a semi-populated area, so I think the areas right adjacent to the bridge on the land should probably, we're going to have to do something special with the building and all that kind of stuff, what we do with, like, zoning and stuff around it, just to make it look like it's not just a really high interest bridge in, like, the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the suburbs. So we'll deal with that when the time comes, but right now what we're doing is just connecting everything, making it look good, the other thing that you can do with the Move It mod is make the highways really tight together. So it actually makes the highways look really, really uniform. And you can use a couple tricks that we'll actually use in a minute. But what we're doing right now is actually taking that one main road from downtown and extending it all the way to the highway. So this should get a bunch of traffic. I don't know. It depends. I'm sure when we get the harbor and all that kind of stuff set up, this road will be utilized a lot more than it probably is currently. But this is the actual bridge and interchange or on-off ramp area that I think I might want to change up later. Now, it's a very broad and just sweeping off-ramp design at this point. I noticed we have a lot of room here, and I figured we'll just kind of make this look, or we'll use a lot of room just to make it, I guess, easy to do. But in the end, it really isn't that easy, and I'm not sure I like the way it looks. But again, we'll probably decide that later on. It does look a lot better using the Move It mod to get all of those angles right, and once again, we're just pulling the angle off of the highway the correct way and pushing it more in toward the highway to have this, like, long arch off the highway. I don't know if I'm explaining this right now, but you're using the segment tool to just kind of make everything flow a little bit easier for cars. It makes sense when you see it, and when we go in live, I'll kind of explain that a little bit more. But what we're doing right now is going ahead and extending past the bridge on the other side of the map. It's past the island we haven't yet to touch, but we have some plans for, and of course we're gonna have to talk about that just a little bit, in just a little bit probably. But what we're doing is we're using some tunnels. Now, I could have gone ahead and we could have just taken this mountain and flattened it out, but I feel like having these tunnels in place is a lot more interesting. We've done tunnels around so far on the map a few times, so what we had to do is actually use the Move It mod makes this so much easier. Like, before the Move It mod, you had to make sure you had the right spacing to get the tunnels to be the exact same, but now you can just rough it in and then go ahead and move the tunnels. And what I did was ultimately move the tunnels closer together, so it looks like instead of 4 segments of sidewalls, there's only 3. But what we're doing right now is flattening out some land and then using the Move It mod for one of those tricks that I was talking about earlier, and that is to create a very symmetric highway. We just copy and paste it, and that's really it. So we get pretty much the same curve, and then all you have to do is go in and flip it around. And sometimes if you place the highway a little too close, you have to use the mod to pull the highway off a little bit, flip it with the flipping upgrade tool or whatever, the flipping upgrade tool, and then go ahead and push it back together. But yeah, that's a really interesting, simple little trick to go ahead and do if you're having trouble building highways. And then of course you can tweak the segments a little bit later. Now, what you just saw me place down was a bridge to that little main island. I don't even know what to call this yet, this island, but eventually it's gonna have some nightlife area, red light district type stuff, and probably like sports arenas, because we have yet to put that in the town. But this bridge right here poses a really interesting little area to make an on-off ramp. So what we're doing is just using some of the ramps and then using some of the roads that you get from the, I think, the network extension mods, and we're using a 2-lane off the highway and then a 1-lane to get back onto the highway and connecting that to the main road. Now this should be pretty nice for traffic, but we'll of course have to check that out as we populate this area. But in theory, it's pretty cool, and I like how this kind of off-ramp area, it utilizes this very awkward space. So getting off of the highway is of course going to be fairly interesting for new drivers in the world or whatever, but like you'd have to slow down real fast and take these extreme kind of turns. But I feel like this isn't like an absurd concept, I guess. I'm pretty sure there's kind of got to be some examples of this in the real world where there's very strange little just very strange awkward spaces that someone had to make a way to get on and off the highway. So I think we're done with highway design for this episode finally. But yeah, there was a lot going on there. But what we're doing for the final little segment here is going ahead and detailing this bike path. Now, I was over here and I was like, where are we actually going to pull this bike path to? This is the one that goes along the quay walls, along the river, and all the way to the train area downtown. And I figured we can connect this up to the little village on the hill and then go ahead and decorate around it. So you're seeing me extend some of the what is that? The bushes, the shady bush. There we go. Now there were some really awkward spots where the move it tool I was trying to use to copy and paste the shady bush, and for some reason the move it tool wasn't snapping the assets to the ground. Now I'm not sure if it was because we're right up on those quay walls, but for whatever reason, or maybe it was because of the slope or something, or maybe there's something going on with the move it tool itself, but for whatever reason it wasn't working. So I had to actually go through and actually, I think, set a lot of the bushes up independently by the way they're supposed to be set up, I guess, without doing the little workaround cheat. But we're using the same rocks that we used on the shores. I love this asset. It's so nice, and it's one asset, so it's not like hundreds of rocks being placed here. It's a few big assets, but it's giving us the impression that this cliffside is actually a rocks cliffside. I don't know, a cliff made of rocks. So this really gives a lot of texture to this area, and this, I think, it covers up that really ugly kind of default texture that looks great from a distance, but when you're really up close to it, it's pretty terrible. But I do want to mention that what I'm using, the shady bush that I'm using, is actually the lighter version, and I use air quotes because it's still probably a pretty heavy asset in terms of CPU and rendering and all that stuff. But yeah, there is actually a second version where it's supposed to be a little bit better for frame rate, which is good because I love the way it looks, and I use it a lot. So yeah, what we're doing here is blending some trees in here, and again, I love the way this area turns out because it takes nature and it kind of brings it in and harnesses it to the point where we started like developing the city, I think. So again, what I've tried to do with the city is incorporate a lot of nature, and I know some people have probably called me out on it, and just like the fact that there's so many trees downtown, and it's just not, you don't see a lot of trees in like a downtown area, but we have been trying to incorporate that a little bit, and I feel like we're blending everything together, and I feel like when this city's done and we take a step back, we're gonna be like, wow, this city was built kind of real organically. At least that's what I'm hoping. But right at the moment, what we're doing is taking some of the big decals from the decal pack and putting down some of this other rock texture. So this is actually giving us like a pebbly texture underneath the big rock clusters. So I love how this area comes out. In the end, it looks great. But yeah, it's one of those areas that if you get down to it, you're like, wow, there's a lot of detail going on here. But it's really, I mean, it is a lot, but it's not like a super amount of detail, like placing, just like meticulously placing things. It's just thinking like Mother Nature, I guess is one way to put it. But yeah, what we're doing right now is going ahead and filling in some more of this bush area. Again, I just wanted to use this as kind of like a wild grass almost, the shady bush here, and then going ahead and taking some of the tree and thinning it out toward the point there. Now, behind the police helicopter depot, we had to kind of incorporate some more nature, and in the end, I love how this looks like the railroad cut through nature, and that's kind of how I guess it all happened. But yeah, the trees are placed down, and then I tried to incorporate trees that we've used throughout the area and kind of bring them all into one central spot here for whatever reason. So we use a lot of the assets that we've been using in the downtown area. I feel like it gives warrant to what we've been placing downtown, because you see kind of how nature, I guess, air quotes, nature would have expanded down that way, and that's kind of how everybody who was planting trees downtown got an idea to use those trees. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but again, that's kind of the fun of this. But you see me place some of the higher trees, and I had actually originally placed some of those right in between the trains and the helicopter depot, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to leave some airspace. But we're going through and just kind of finishing this up with the rock decal. But let's go ahead and jump into the live portion. Alright guys, so here we are in the live portion, and before we kind of start, I just have to apologize for the frame rate, which I'm sure will be atrocious at points from here on out in the live portions of this series, unless I were to significantly upgrade my CPU, which is something I want to do eventually, but right now can't really do. So mind that, but let's go ahead and check out what we were just doing. And what we were just doing was this little nature corner area. I don't really know how to describe it, but yes, this is where the bike trail goes up and meets up with the little development that we have on the ridge here. And I really, really adore this little area. It's just, I love the fact that the nature is so much like, it's encroaching on the quay walls. These were put in place at one point because they had to be to contain the river. And we could probably use this terrain tool to smooth this out. Although I think once the game starts to play a little bit and the water settles down, it kind of settles itself out. But yeah, I love how this little area came about, and I just like that, like, if you were a citizen or somebody riding your bike, you'd have a fun time going down this trail. Certain points are a little iffy, but yeah, it's just a really cool trail, and if you don't look up, it feels like you're in nature, but if you look up, you see a pretty large city, and a lot of bridge, and just a lot of civilization. So there's something about this area that just, the detail work and just everything that went into it just makes it such a cool little area. And of course, I like how the highway looks like it's cutting right through a bunch of trees and rocks, and it really is. We used the Move It tool once again to move some of these rocks directly under the highway, so it looks like it was built over it. And then we have the trees placed around it, and it looks like the train is doing the same thing. The train tracks are just cutting right in half this little nature area. And then, of course, we've placed a little helicopter depot here. And yeah, we've had some patrol copters going around doing their thing. But coming off of the helicopter depot, there's just this little alleyway street that we actually used over here in these other helicopter depots. But this is a really awkward area. It's not all that awkward. We could definitely do some more detail work around here, and we will definitely get to that. But this area was meant to just more or less be an area for people to get from the highway to kind of the downtown, or close to, I guess, the metropolitan area. Yeah, but I originally had put that 4-lane road here. It wasn't working, so we changed this to a one-way, and we came off of the one-way onto the highway, and then this slows down into a one-way, so the traffic will actually slow. And if you don't know, I don't know if you knew this, you probably, if you've played this a lot, you do know this, but the speed limits are different on different roads. So I think the highway is at 60, whereas these are probably at like 30 or something, so the cars actually do slow down here, which is actually kind of cool because right up here you have an intersection with a light. But I like how this little alleyway kind of, like, the city or the police workers or whoever can, like, turn onto here to go to work, pull over here, go to do their job at the helicopter depot, and then right here is a one-way going this way. So nobody can, like, turn from the highway to go this way, but you can go from work back to the downtown area if that's, I guess, your situation. So I like how that happened, and I originally didn't have this road here. And the reason it's here is because I was noticing a lot of cars coming up this road, coming to this intersection, turning, stopping, turning, and then going onto the highway. So just to expedite that process, I kind of put a little bit of a little one-way road here, and it's kind of just, yeah, it's just a nice way to get traffic, I guess, more organized and less congested in this area. So it might look awkward, but it is there for a purpose. Now, if we move down here, we have our little interchange coming from the main highway. Again, this is off the toll road, and we actually did put a wind turbine here because these hadn't had any power for the entire series. Now, this isn't actually like gaining us revenue or anything from cars going through it. It's just stopped complaining, essentially. So that's that. It also looks kind of cool to have the wind turbine there. It's just a kind of a nice spot to have a wind turbine because nothing else is going here. So little, I guess, good use of this area. And then you go off of the turnpike, you pay the toll, and then you go ahead and get back onto the highway. And that's how you get downtown if you want to go that way. So it's a 3-lane highway here. And then this was something that I had to think about as I was going through and designing this. So it splits off into two lanes. Now, I could have just done like a 1-lane off-ramp and then split this over to a 2-lane or 3-lane or something over here. Now, the reason I didn't do that is because I feel like this is going to be a really good access point for a lot of people as we kind of get more populated, and as we expand even like down this way with like industry and all that kind of stuff. We're gonna notice and we're gonna see a lot of traffic probably coming to the downtown area and using these highways. So I wanted to keep that in mind as I was selecting which kinds of roads to put into this whole situation. So yes, there's a 2-lane going that way and there's a 2-lane going this way. Now this road, or this highway rather, is pretty important because it's gonna go and be the main way to get down to the harbor, which we are gonna eventually put down here. We're gonna reclaim a little bit of this land, I think, or maybe even just flatten a lot of this. I'm not sure. When we get closer to that project, we'll go ahead and I guess figure that out through the comments section or something. But yeah, I wanted to keep that in mind because there's gonna be a lot of people going on the highway down there. We may eventually have to maybe expand this to a 3-lane, which is going to be problematic because the 2 lanes are the only things that fit on this bridge. So we'll figure that out if we ever need to. If not, you know, I mean, it could just be a really busy road, and that's fine. But here we go into the main. This is the main road that goes all the way downtown. It's a 4-lane road with a bus. It's a 4-lane with a bus. And then it goes to the roundabout, and the frame rate is just tanking over here. And then it expands into this 6-lane with a bus lane, and people, I guess, parking on the other side of the bus lane, whatever, that's fine. But yes, this is the main road to downtown. It kind of splits the city in half, but I'm thinking we're going to get a bunch of people using this little on-off ramp area And again, I'm not so sure I like this. It looks really bad from the air, but I'm sure once you get down and like look, it's not even that big of a deal. I'm sure we could use some tweaks here or whatever, but the main idea here was to get a single off-ramp and then go ahead and split this into 2 lanes. Now, this over here doesn't really work just yet because there's no extension on that road, but this works over here. So it splits the traffic going both ways. This is what I imagine to be one of the main on-off ramps of the whole area. Again, we're going to probably do some suburban areas over here in this district that we have yet to name. I kind of want to hold off on naming this, even though I wanted to name it in, I think, the last episode. But I want to get this to have more of like a personality before we go ahead and name it. So we're holding off on that. But anyway, we're moved down past the bridge, and you get this really strange kind of off-ramp area over here. This is weird because usually you'll see the off-ramp be before the road that you hit. Not a lot of, well, I think I'm talking out of turn almost on that, because there are a lot of intersections that kind of cut back. But yeah, it's a weird kind of, because you see a lot of times 2 ways coming off of a road to get onto the highway or off the highway. So you'd see more of a flow to things. This is very abrupt. It all comes off of one way on this 4-lane street and goes back on and off the highway. And of course you have to go to either side to get back on or off the highway. That's fine. But this is going to be just a really serviceable area, I think, for us. We'll check that out as we kind of expand down here. And I was actually looking, and I don't know if you guys want to have input on this, but I just loaded this up to do this live portion, and I could have probably put a highway through this island, like off here, onto this island, through, kind of like through here, and then met back up here. I don't know, it could be an idea. I kind of don't like it. I really like having the city kind of highway free for whatever reason. I don't know. There's just something about it. I like having the highway kind of go around it, and then us having to have it. It's almost more challenging because there's gonna be traffic problems. So public transportation is paramount in this city, and I think so far so good. It's not like we have any major critical areas. But then again, I feel like once we expand, I mean, our population isn't really all that high right now either. Our population is only about 18,000 people. Now, that'll go up because we actually have a ton of demand for residential. So a lot of this, what is currently known as Meadow Hills, is going to be residential. So we'll see a lot of what's going on there. Now, I had actually talked about the zoning around this bridge, and I probably wasn't all that clear about that, but the high-rises are pretty much all stuck over here. Again, I'm gonna say I don't want to do high-rises over here anymore, or past like where they are, but there's always the possibility. But I do want to stick to like high-density, I guess high-density zoning, but maybe put the high-rise restriction on. That should help that a little bit. Yeah, as you come down here, it's gonna be pretty densely populated around here, and then maybe like with a lull in the skyline, like if we're looking at it, lots of buildings right here, and then kind of like thinned out over here maybe, and have like a lot of smaller properties. Again, I think that's going to be in the next episode. I've been saying that for a while. I've been saying we're going to build this district out for a while, but yeah, I think next episode is the time to go ahead and do this. So let's do that, I guess. Before we go, though, I do want to take a little zip over to the Pubaka Canal Sewage Center and check to make sure the levels on the canal are fine, and yes, they are. That was kind of just, it was embarrassing almost, but it just goes to show you that I don't check this all that often. Now, the dam is pretty, important to check and make sure it's not, like, overflowing or anything. But, yeah, that'll be in the finale. I think we're going to destroy the dam and see what happens. I'm really hoping that it's not, like, anticlimactic or anything. But, we'll do something fun with that. But until then, we have a lot of stuff to do. We have so much to do. We have to complete this district, which I'm thinking is in the next episode. We have to build out the island and the whole tourism area. That's in there. We still have to build an airport, which might go around here. We still have to do a lot of the industrial zone stuff. We have a harbor to make. We have a science center tucked away in a mountain to, you know, attend to. There's just so much to do. We should get on that. So, guys, if you like this episode and you're ready for the return of the series and all that stuff on the channel, go ahead and thumbs up this episode. If you disliked it, give me a thumbs down. That's fine. And I guess that'll do it for this one. Guys, thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll be back here in Northern Valley. See ya.